I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Dr. Bones, listening to Dr. Bones.
Good afternoon, this is Dr. Bones Live, and today my guest is Joey from Cash is King. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Absolutely. So first off, I mean, we've heard like just different mixes of, Cash Rules All, and there's so many things associated with it. Did you just come up and say, you know what, Cash is King is a good idea and we're going to go with it, or did you kind of preconceive the idea?
To be honest, it was kind of it was preconceived, as in it was before my time, but the actual name and where it came about was my lead singer Dave and a former member of the band who's a good friend of ours, Rob. They were talking about like the economic state in the world, and they heard the show and they just mentioned Cash is King, as in terms of the economic crisis and how things are going on today. So it just kind of rang off the tongue a little bit, and the two guys said, look, maybe go with that, So that's kind of where the name came from,
Well, it does, you're right, it does absolutely roll the tongue very easily, and such an easy name to remember just because it's such a thing that just kind of stands out because, in a sense, in some many ways, cash rules a lot of things, so
exactly. And it definitely works to our advantage a little bit in terms of like getting the name out there and stuff like that. And I guess it is one of those things. That's really the full explanation for the name, but we have a bit of an attachment to it as well. We actually genuinely like the name, and even though we don't kind of represent the kind of fakeness behind the statement or anything like that, in terms of us as a group best describing us, it is who we are now. We are that name, if that makes sense.
No, very true. No, it does actually make perfect sense. Now, the next question I have for you guys is, when you guys, since you said there's a former member now, how long as a band, as a lineup now, have you been together? Like, did you guys know each other before, or did you meet through friends or band of other bands, or how'd that work for you?
It was actually, it was pretty strange. How my role in the band, I'm the drummer in the band, but how the band came about was the idea was, as you said earlier on, preconceived by Dave, our singer, and another friend of ours, Rob, who initially kind of in inception phase of getting the group and Dave getting the idea together. It was basically the two of them together. It was Dave since parted ways with Rob quite a long time ago, nearly 3 or 4 years, still friends and all that sort of stuff. But Dave actually put an advertisement on the internet looking to form a group, and he had put up just really a quick take of his vocals. And he got me in studio then, and I saw his advert, and I auditioned for the group. And at the time, he had played a track that you played on the show there a couple of weeks ago, Caught in the Middle. And I just kind of instantly fell in love with the song, and we connected very well, and it was pretty much from that moment on. And since then, we've picked up two really good guys. We've got Shane Ryan is our guitarist, and we have Dahi as another guitarist, and he also fills in on keys as well. So a pretty tightly knit unit now at the moment, and I don't foresee any more changes, if you like, this is the outfit as it stands.
Well, I just curiosity, because usually when I've talked to the bands, they've kind of set in their final lineup, because talked about this a little bit about this the other day, where some bands, when they get together, just because they get together at that time doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the actual full lineup.
Yeah.
So, and there are changes, and for many, many reasons, and we don't need to know them all, which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
They'll have their reasons and justifications of why they left or that, what have you. But it's always kind of somewhat of a curiosity to me, because you hear there's some bands where they go through, let's say, guitarist after guitarist or drummer after drummer, and it's just like a non-stop thing, and they think they got to set a lineup, and then like maybe 2 months down the road they're looking for a new drummer, and just like you got to wonder sometimes the dynamic of the band and like why like these people are leaving, because obviously sometimes like you just mentioned they're well, to the people leaving it, there are always valid reasons, and that's fine. We're not gonna knock that at all. But sometimes you just wonder if there's a specific reason why these people keep on leaving or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is a pretty common thing as well. I think we're lucky in terms of we are who we are now, and as I said, we don't foresee any sort of changes. And I know life kind of changes and stuff like now, but in terms of songwriting and shows and stuff, I couldn't really see myself being in a group with anybody outside of who's in it right now, and I'm sure the guys would answer the very same as well. You know. We are a team, like, at the end of the day, and we all kind of work towards the same things. We just want our music to be exposed, and we want to have a good time while doing it. Because it's supposed to be a fun thing as well, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's supposed to be a fun thing as well, and I think when egos get in the way and little things like that, then you'll see that cycle of guitarists leaving or drummers leaving, and it's really just a replacement, and it's just to compensate for other egos. But there's no egos in this band, and there's no room for egos really, because we're all on the same wavelength, it's a really kind of hard combination to get. So I have to say I'm really lucky to be playing with these guys, and really lucky to be part of the group, you know.
Absolutely. And you know, it was one thing that I use this phrase, and I know other people do too, but it's called the spinal tap syndrome. Have you ever,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, where they keep on losing a drummer? And I mentioned the other day where the funniest ones, he lost a drummer to a green thumb, which was, I think, one of the best, one of the best things to come up with. So it's always the thing I think of, and that's the first thing that pops into mind. Even though it's a mockumentary, still, you know, kind of it does ring true. So
It does, yeah, and I think it can actually be contagious, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think once one person leaves, it might have a knock-on effect to somebody else. So then it just, as you said yourself, kind of spinal tap syndrome, where it just kind of spirals out of control a little bit.
now, as a band right now, how does a band dynamic work? Meaning, like, how do you guys write songs? Do you guys all come together and show different ideas, or is it one person will bring one thing to the table and they start working on that and kind of move on from there?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of things, really. I think initially, as I said earlier on, with the likes of Caught in the Middle and our debut single, City Lights, these are ideas that came to the forefront from Dave, our singer, and he's an amazing voice, and he brings these amazing melodies to the table. And we've for the last couple of songs, or for kind of our set at the moment, our live set, a lot of it has been worked around some great ideas that Dave has brought to the forefront, and we kind of helped develop them. We kind of trashed them out as a band. Now it's similar enough, as in everybody has an idea, we bring it all forth, but a lot of the work kind of happens when somebody has to have an idea in order for us to work out a song. So generally we will go with whoever's got kind of the most inspiration at the time. Like, we all individually write songs and music and stuff like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best song for the band or that it'll suit the outfit. But we're not apprehensive to bring forward an idea if we do feel it's going to be something that's going to be good for the band and it's going to enhance our sound, or it's going to make the set. So recently we just kind of jammed out a couple of tracks, and we're on to a couple of new ones now at the moment. So we had our show set nailed down and all that sort of good stuff. And now we're kind of expanding on that, kind of taking different directions in terms of what the songs actually sound like, and just kind of adding a little more variety and enhancing on what we originally had written, you know. So before we were kind of a melodic rock band, and now we're slowly but surely, with the introduction of the likes of synth and keys from Dahi, it's just adding that extra new dynamic. So we just kind of find ourselves constantly evolving, if that makes sense. So we all kind of have an input, but it's I would say the main idea generator would be Dave, because he comes up with such great ideas. So we're kind of happy with that relationship, if that makes sense, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing is, I've mentioned plenty of times before in different interviews and on air is that uh, the band's evolving is is a good thing, and that's the way it's supposed to go because musically you're always growing. I mean, you're always in a sense learning something new. Even something as simple as this radio show, it's a constant learning process for me too because I'm learning new things and different things of way of going about things. So it's a good thing that that you keep that in mind, that you keep evolving because once excuse me, once it becomes stagnant, everything kind of falls apart because it's kind of the same old thing and people want something new, but they want something new musically, not kind of the same stuff they've been hearing, let's say for 2 or 3 albums in a row. So the evolution process of a band is absolutely 100% necessary.
Yeah, I know, I agree entirely, and a lot of it is to do with you as an individual as well, as in if you're not constantly evolving and changing and looking at new ways and new approaches, like you said, things can get stagnant, and I've seen a lot of great bands over the years kind of just fall apart literally because they weren't evolving individually, but they weren't sharing their ideas either. So it is a kind of a double-edged sword, really, if you like, as in you kind of have to know what's good and what you have to kind of evolve yourself and listen to new music and learn new things, but more so if you've got new ideas to bring them to the forefront and not keep them to yourself, because it'll only be to a detriment to the group then, and then as I said earlier, we're kind of lucky that way because there's no real ego. So when anybody has an idea, we'll always give it a go. We'll always trash it out and we'll always see what way it works. And if it works, which is brilliant. It's great. It'll be infectious and we'll develop it out. But if it doesn't, we'll be safe to say, look, it's not working. We'll maybe come back to this or we'll explore a different way at looking at the idea. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Brian. Yeah.
Do you ever? I know I'm happy you said that, but do you ever find, just because I want to jump back just a second here, as you're talking about when you're kind of jamming stuff out. Now, do you find that when you're jamming your songs out, that after let's say like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, or maybe at the very beginning, something new is added and it just sounds good, so you decide to keep it so the song has evolved from its original state to a completely different level now?
Yeah, that's a good point. It actually happens quite a bit. A pure example, because of the drummer, I have kind of, I guess, this drummer's ideology that it needs to be upbeat and it needs to be fast, but not always the case. But sometimes we'll get a tune or an idea for a tune that started out as what we had in mind as being an upbeat tune, and it ends up being the complete opposite. It ends up being a slower song and a different mood. Or the other way around, it starts off being slow and in actual fact it ends up being the other way around. It really depends, and it depends entirely on the individuals. As I said, now we've got a new dynamic with the synth there, and just even slight little things could kind of totally change the whole idea or the concept. Whereas when you were writing and say, I don't know, maybe Dave might have an idea where he's written the song as a particular way and he's written it partially on his own, but when he brings it in, we develop it out, it ends up being a totally different beast, if you like, which is always a good thing, because it'll always, and if it's a good idea, it's worth developing. So if we're doing it together, we are developing together, then yeah, it's hard to know what way it's going to go, but that is a scenario that happens quite a bit, as in what happens as a little small idea turns into a completely different animal, if you like.
No, and it's always interesting. I like hearing about that, because you're right. It does happen very often. The other thing is too, is a lot of times what I've heard too is just, and I've asked about it a few times, is when you guys play live. A lot of times it gives you a bit more freedom. You might add, like, say, an extra 30 seconds, maybe an extra minute to the song. And then after playing that, it may have gotten such a good response. Like, this actually sounds really good. Why don't we just throw this in too and just kind of extend the song? Sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times it does.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're. Yeah, I definitely agree. That's where we're at the moment in terms of developing a set, because I think it's safe to say, as a band, what can happen is you can fall into the trap of, okay, I'm gonna go play a gig, I'm gonna play the song the way I've written it, or I've recorded it in studio, without actually having a think about how it's going to affect a listener and live music and all that sort of good stuff, But that's where we're at the moment. we're developing a show. We're not just going to be that band that plays a gig anymore. We want the audience to have an experience, and we want to trash out the ideas and just go with it. And that's what it's all about, really, exploring new things. And I guess that's where we've kind of had our success to date. We've done pretty well here in Ireland, kind of in terms of establishing our name. We're not at the top as of yet, but I suppose by name alone, a lot of people know of us, or like to think they know of us. So, but yeah, it's all good. I think you definitely have to take a new dynamic on things and explore the ideas out, especially live, because there's nothing worse than going to see that band that you really love and they just play the songs that you hear and not what you play what's expected, and not kind of develop it into a show. So that's where we're at the moment, and we're working really hard trying to craft that, you know. That's
a really good point, because there are at least one band, I've seen them a few times, and each time live the songs changed a little bit live, but it made it really interesting. It's a bit of a long song, so it's a good thing they kind of switched it up a bit, kind of, because it's a really good song, but it can drag out a little bit. And the band Tool, the song Third Eye, which is off their second album, Einema, I've seen them about 3 times live, and each time it switched up different live, and each time it was a really good spin on it. Like I said, it's a really good song, but that song can drag out a little bit, so kind of throwing in those extra little things can really help out and keep the crowd's attention, even though they're just like one of those bands that just musically, like vocally and instrumentally are just very finely tuned and talented. So, but that can only take you so far, right? You gotta kind of top that up with a good show live, and keep the crowd into it, which they do day in and day out when they do play shows.
No, I agree, and I, especially in terms of playing it as a musician, without saying it bad, like it can become monotonous playing the same tunes and ideas over and over and over and over again. So, like, when you think about the amount of musicians, especially bands that play regularly or gig in their hometowns or whatever, they practice regularly, they rehearse regularly, but they rehearse the songs, and then if they might be in the studio recording the songs or laying them down or whatever they're going to be doing, but it can take its toll on you mentally a little bit. So to shake things up, it's always good to say, well, look, maybe for this I'm going to change this part of the song for live or whatever, and just mix it up completely, because then it puts the fun back into where you got the original idea and how you fell in love with that idea in the first place. So yeah, I think it is a dangerous trap, as a lot of bands do fall into it. We're not one of those at the moment.
I know, no, it's a good thing, because my personal opinion, like, if they don't switch up every now and then, it's almost like going to see a cover band.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't change. It's the same pattern. You can expect this song, and this song, in this order, and that sort of thing. And cool the first few times, but after a while, it's like, all right, I need to see something different here. You need to change it just a little bit. I'm kind of starting to lose interest here. So
yeah, true, and like that's what it's all about. If you don't keep the interest of your audience, it's going to have a domino effect. It's like the age-old saying: for every good experience somebody has, they tell 3 people. For every bad experience they have to tell 10. So the last thing you want is that one guy going telling 10 people that he didn't enjoy the show, whereas you want it the other way around. But,
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, with introducing synth and keyboards to the whole dynamic, how is that? How has that kind of changed and made it more interesting? I mean, obviously it's added a different depth to the band, but has it been like more of an exciting kind of thing as opposed to like, it's cool, but
again, it's a kind of it's a double-edged sword. So you can overthink things in retrospect as well. So far to date, it's totally evolved our live show. So. But it's also opened us up to a new kind of demographic of listeners and fans, if you like. It's modernized our sound a little bit, as opposed to kind of keeping us into one genre, if you like. Whereas, as I told you earlier on, we initially, from inception, we were kind of that kind of rock pop band, but now we're kind of going into that more sort of, if you like, indie kind of dance rock. I can't really describe it, but Hopefully when we get the new tracks, we're recording EP at the moment. When I get the new tracks and I get them out to you, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about.
I kind of have a good idea of what you're talking about. I kind of know the direction you're going in, and it does make sense. I mean, because like I play such a variety of bands, and it kind of goes somewhat back and forth. So I know what you mean by just the distinction of certain bands that have gone from a certain style to a little bit different style. So I completely get it.
Yeah. Like I suppose if I was making a biased comparison, I'm a big Incubus fan. I have been since I was a teenager, and the fact that they're a band that have been around nearly 20 years and every album has been totally different. I suppose I can relate a little bit, as in we started out as this kind of rock band, but now we're kind of evolving into something different, and I think that's a testament to them as well, because they've lasted so long, and hopefully we'll be in the same position in a couple of years' time. But we will be definitely based on our relationships, based on the music. Where we don't know, and that's the fun of it, and that's the whole fun of the journey, if you like. But it's definitely made things more interesting, a little bit more fun. Gets the audience a little bit more cranked and pumped up. But if anything, it's working in our advantage right now. And now it could be like the Neil Young doing his experimental synth stuff back in the day and just turned out to be a complete disaster. I don't know. Hopefully it won't. But for now, it's going really, really well, and it's adding that kind of extra edge, if you like.
You got a really good point. You know what? I can completely agree with you on the Incubus thing, because I'm a huge fan too. So, and I can just pick it out one by one, like from step by step, from the very first EP, Fungus Mungus, to Signs, to Make Yourself. Each one, you're right, is progressing, gone differently. Like, and even something as simple as the way DJ Kilmore does stuff in the songs, right? Even he's evolved with the band and done different stuff, so it hasn't been the kind of same stuff from the very beginning. It's all changed up.
Exactly, and like he went from that being that guy who spun the vinyls and records to now he's a pretty accomplished pianist, and he adds synth and all this organ layering and all that sort of stuff. But that was all him, He constantly evolved and he changed, and I think they've totally changed as a band, but they haven't kind of lost sight of anything, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. The other thing I want to mention too is just back to the synth and keyboards here for just 1 second. I'm just thinking about this just because I saw this, I'm not saying documentary, but I guess kind of behind the scenes. I saw this again just the other day, and the band Rush was being interviewed. And this is all, and as we know, people who are not Rush fans, Geddy Lee's lead singer and bassist, but he also plays keyboards and synths. And
a lot of so you're okay.
So a lot of times in the song, they go he's either doing both, or they go from stopping the bass for a little bit and playing keyboards. And they asked him, they said, well, how did you ever manage how do you manage to do that stuff all the time? And he just pointed right to his nose. He goes, this big Jewish nose. I can knock the mic out of the way and get myself right into the keyboard. And I started dying and laughing. I was like, you know what? That's such a funny way of doing it, but he's right. He does have a huge honker. So
he does, yeah.
And so,
I think he does a lot of singing through it as well.
Yeah. So
I'm a big fan. I've always liked Rush. Yeah, it's kind of one of those bands that you can't really place them in any genre because there's so much going on,
Well, and that's right, and them as a whole are just so musically accomplished. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think Neil Peart is one of the best drummers in the world. I honestly do.
Yeah, he's definitely on my list of influences. I tend not to go down the Neil Peart route based on the songs that we write, but I think every drummer in the world would like to put on a 30-minute, 40-minute solo if they were allowed by the rest of their band members.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes without saying.
Without getting tired out too, right? Because I mean, I know how physically demanding drumming is. Like I'm not a drummer myself. I'm freely admit that. I've tried a few times, and obviously I didn't keep at just friends bass drum kits, and I can't do it. I just don't have the coordination for it. So all the much more respect to yourself and drummers, because it's not as easy as it looks to everybody. Oh, I can play drums. And really, I don't think you can. I think you might want to think about that and try it again, because it's not nearly as easy as it looks.
No, well, it kind of, I suppose Ozzy Osbourne summed it up pretty well. He said it takes a lunatic to play the drums. So, or to want to bang these things, I don't know, but I don't know. It's just it can be demanding, but over time, it's like anything. It just kind of it almost becomes a regime. You kind of get used to it, and it really depends on how long you're playing for and what sort of set. And like some nights, depending on the venue you're playing in, you might play a gig where you don't have any mics at the drums and you have to hit them that extra little bit harder to ensure that the people at the back can hear exactly what you're doing. And then other nights you might get the kit fully mic'd up in a big venue. So it really depends, but it definitely takes a certain type of person to want to play the drums.
Absolutely, and with all these saying lunatics, you can back that up so easily because you think of some of the lunatics that have played drums in the past. Unfortunately, not with us right now, but people like John Bonham and Keith Moon. I mean, those guys were just it's individuals,
but still made their mark in history. Just doing some crazy stuff as well, yeah.
And them and one of them, I guess my favorite newer drummers to just watching this guy, and he's just got such a natural talent for playing offbeat timing and making it go well with the rest of the song is Danny Carey from Tool. I mean, that guy, just watching him play live, he just completely mesmerized.
Yeah, seriously talented guy. I actually had the privilege of seeing him a couple of years ago when Ozfest actually came to Ireland a long time ago, and I got to see him play. So but yeah, he's just one of those guys who's got this unnatural unnatural coordination. He's just so good at having different rhythms and piecing them all together. And he adds, if he wasn't in a group, I'd like to think that, I don't know, the band would sound like a totally different outfit.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Because if you look at some of his signature timings for some of the songs, you're looking, you're just scratching your head, thinking, like, how the F is he doing this?
Yeah, exactly. So, he baffles me, Brian. To be honest, I'm not going to even try and recreate what he does because he just does it so well.
So I know we got sidetracked there for just a little bit, but let's get back to the band, and then we're going to get to a song here in just a minute. But you guys said you're currently working on EP, and you got a couple of songs in the works. Do you have any like kind of time frame or timeline for this, or are you just kind of taking it as it comes?
Well, we do have a time frame. Like we ideally want to have some sort of launch in Dublin. We're hoping in around kind of early June to kind of have the launch. That's kind of an estimated date, but we went into the studio just with wanted to record 3 tracks, but this time it was a little bit of a different experience for us because we actually had a producer in studio. So the engineer that was mixing the tracks is a really nice guy, a great guy called Gavin Ralston. He's actually he's a professional. He was a professional musician. He toured all over the world with lots of different bands and stuff like that. So this time when we went into the studio, we wanted to make sure that we captured the full feeling of the songs and explored them a little bit differently. So there was actually quite a lot of structural changes that happened throughout the course of creating the EP. So it's taken a little bit longer than we would like, but it's the icing on the cake. So we don't want to rush it either, because when it's ready, it will really be ready, and we'll be really happy with handing it out to people. And sometimes, again, it's another dangerous trap you can get into. You might have an idea, and you might not capture it the way you want to capture it in studio. And like they're not small investments. They're a huge investment in time and money. So you want to make sure that it comes out right. But the EP, it's almost finished, and we did some kind of last kind of vocals there recently. Dave did, our singer, and we're hoping to have it. I'd say I'll probably have it in my hands. I don't know, maybe second week of April. So all going well, that's when I'll have it.
That's coming pretty quick, and that actually kind of works out nicely because that's pretty much when I'm getting back from my vacation. I start vacation next weekend. I'm going to Cuba for a week, so
great. Okay,
it's something to look forward to when I get back.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to playing it on the show. So we're always happy to get a new audience, especially a different demographic that we're used to. We're used to getting a lot of play in our own country, but it's always nice to get to listenerships all around the world, especially in Canada as well. So
Well, and that's the thing. That's what's great about this the show that I do, but just the app in general is, once the show starts, it posts to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and that sort of thing. So it's
Yeah.
pretty much open for anybody to listen to. And literally daily, I'm getting more and more new listeners, and it's nice because now this music that a while back we would have had a bit more of an issue trying to get a hold of, or even knowing it existed. Now there's so much more room for it. And that being said, I just got one more thing, then we're going to move into a song here. The one thing about the Ireland scene in general is musically is actually starting to progress, because I've seen it be getting more and more bands coming out of Ireland. Well, because the UK, for the most part, besides the bands from North America, UK is like a bread and butter for a lot of good bands for me.
yeah.
And I've noticed, and like little by little, I mean, the Ireland scene is really starting to expand, and people are meeting people who they've heard about, and now because of Twitter and because of the show, now they've hooked up and are doing some, like, let's say, remixes or that sort of thing, and they're playing shows together. And it's always nice to hear that. I mean, there's two guys in general. There's one of the band is called Analog Wave, and
I've heard them, actually. Great, really, really good outfit. Yeah, I've actually come across them once or twice. I've never had the privilege of meeting the guys, but definitely some really cool material. Yeah.
well, I did get a chance to interview them, and they good bunch of guys. It was a lot of fun, and because of them and another guy plays, it's like electro blues sort of thing. As he's on Twitter as Grim Dairy, but his actual stage name is Grim.
Okay.
And they kind of knew each other before because of the show, though. They got to know each other better, so now they've been talking about working together in some songs. So it's just nice to kind of keep that the musical family expanding.
Yeah, yeah, Like it's kind of back to the stage now where you do meet a lot of the same guys when you're gigging around Dublin and around Ireland, and it's a little bit more communal. I think a couple of years ago when I was gigging in other bands and stuff like that, it wasn't the industry, if you like, wasn't as friendly as it is now. And now you get a lot of bands that will help you out. Like we even had the privilege recently last Saturday of playing in a venue called the Sugar Club in Dublin, a really popular venue with a band that's based in LA, and they're kind of Irish and American. Band called Friends of Emmett, and just reaching out to them, like they had us on the bill, and it was their gig, but at the same time they were really accommodating with having us on the bill, if you like. And I think that sort of stuff is cool, and it's coming back an awful lot more. Bands want to help each other out, and it's not as much of a competition, if you like. It's more so people helping people out with similar interests,
Absolutely, and it makes such good sense. It's just one way, you essentially helping each other out and getting both the names out there, as opposed to just kind of one person at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone has the same goal, and that's getting their music out to the far reaches of the planet, and just exposing it to different people. And it's good that you can get help from other people, and more so that you can help out other people. I'd like to think that if we were in the same position as the guys in Friends of Emma's, they're doing really well. They're actually playing in I think in Ontario in April, the second week of April. So to the best of my knowledge, they're playing Canada. They're playing one of the big cities in Canada. But I'd like to think if we were in the same position, that a band that we've met along the way would like to kind of help them out as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to a song right now, and this is one thing thankfully doesn't happen too often anymore. The song is called Caught in the Middle by Cash is King.
When you're breaking up while you're breaking me, so much so you can never see. 'Cause when you lose your heart, you got your soul. It means so much more than you will ever know. And it feels like you're caught in the middle. cut you the heart and I can't see. Fear in your eyes looking back at me. You keep running away but you don't show that you mean more to me than you will ever know. It feels like you're caught in the middle. You're caught in the middle with me. It feels like you're caught in the middle. Caught in the middle with me. It feels like you're caught in the middle. Caught in the middle with me. Feels like you're caught in the middle. Caught in the middle with me.
All right, that was "Caught in the Middle" of Cassius King, and a very good tune. I know Dave's not here but he wanted to defend himself for this one. But I just love his melody and harmony, and this just kind of almost kind of basic, kind of not quite a ballad, but just a kind of smooth, even flow. It's a kind of easy. Well, easy listening would be the wrong word. I don't want to categorize you guys like that. So,
No, I agree entirely. And he's the sole reason why I'm in the band. It's the first thing I heard his vocal, and I reached out, and it was as simple as that. Really, he's definitely a talented guy, and that's what we're going for now with the new tracks, is to kind of showcase his vocals a little bit more. Just to have them a little bit more honest. And I think that track was actually recorded as just kind of a rough draft nearly 2.5 years ago. I'm actually the one playing guitar on it, because at the time we didn't have a guitarist, so it was just literally myself and Dave working out an idea, and Dave singing it. So we were singing it, or we recorded it live in it's actually a live track. We recorded it live in a radio station in West Dublin. It's called West Dublin Access Radio. So Dave works there on occasion, or he's helped him out quite a bit, and we just got in and got his idea laid down, but it turned out to get a better reception than we'd like, if you put it that way. But we've re-recorded it on the EP as the kind of live rockier version, if you like.
well, it's such a great tune because it's a very, very catchy tune. And that's the one thing that kind of like a lot about a bit. It's one of those songs that can get stuck in your head in a good way, not in a bad way, but just one of those ones. You walk around and start humming it. Just one of those ones easy, or you're sitting around, you kind of it's like this kind of starts tapping it. You can hear the guitar in your head, so you're kind of tapping along, sort of thing.
Yeah. He'd be happy to hear that. I think he's a bit under the weather at the moment, so I think he's got a slight touch of the man flu, so hopefully he hasn't done anything to his voice, so hopefully he's okay. But no, you're dead right. He's very good at bringing those sort of melodies to the forefront, and he's definitely a major asset to the band. And for a lead singer, he's not that guy with the ego. He's the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
And that's always a good thing, because I mean, I guess everybody in their own right at some point may deserve to have a little bit of an ego, but only to a certain point, to where it gets frustrating. There's some people who kind of can pull off the ego, call it /badass, and get away with it for so many years. But there's some people who try it, and that just kind of plummets them. And one guy in particular that I'm sure nobody will disagree with me with this one, as far as being an ego and really pompous, but the music is just good, and you can't help but kind of love to hate the guy, is none other than Johnny Rotten, aka Johnny Lydon from the Sex Pistols.
No, I agree. I suppose he kind of changed how people perceive lead singers anyway, slightly. So, but I agree. He's one of those guys who could possibly get away with it. I think Axl Rose tried that for a while, but I don't think he does get away with it. So.
Not anymore. Now he's more the pun of a lot of jokes. So.
yeah, exactly.
So I've only have a few more questions, and just before this last sidetrack, real quick, 92, 93, when MTV was doing their music awards, Nirvana was playing, and Guns N' Roses was there to accept an award, and before the show, they got all the trailer set up, that sort of thing, and Dave Grohl and Kurt Cobain, Courtney Love were all together, and they're walking around, and they ran into Axl, and they started chatting with him, and then Kurt Cobain made an off-the-cuff comment. He goes, you know what, man? He goes, you'd be an awesome godfather for a child, and Axl Rose didn't like that too much, so he kind of stormed off, and they were kind of laughing and making fun of him for that. And then at the end of Nirvana's set, which was just the one song, pretty much everything had been torn down. Dave Grohl runs up to the mic and says, "Where's Axl? Where's Axl? Hi Axl! Hi Axl!" Just like completely, it's like well done, you know. So sometimes they deserve to be knocked down a few pegs, right? So
yeah, I think that guy is pretty worthy of saying it now. I don't think he can knock Dave off the pedestal anytime soon. He's pretty much done it all.
Yeah, exactly. So I just that's one thing. That's one story that I always think of, and it was always a fun story just because of the whole thing went down. Once people know the background behind it, because a lot of people just saw the show and saw what he's doing, they're kind of like, well, it's kind of funny, but what does he mean? And they see the background, it's like, oh, okay, well now that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So just a few more questions for you, Joey. Since we're using a form of it, how has the social media worked for you guys as a band, like i.e. Twitter, SoundCloud, Facebook, the whole deal?
I think it has its positives and its negatives. So far, it's been great for us. I think nowadays a lot of bands, even they source their gigs, and it's totally different to what it was back in the day, where you'd get a number of a promoter and you'd call him and hope that he gets your message and hope that he comes back to you and puts you on the bill for a gig somewhere. But nowadays it's a totally different ball game. As in, the Twitter thing has worked really well for us, Facebook as well, and if it wasn't for the likes of, I guess, SoundCloud, like you mentioned there, we wouldn't be able to expose our music, and it's just a really, really quick way of getting new ideas and new songs out to different people and new people, you know. But so far so good. It's worked pretty well for us, and if it wasn't for the power of social media, I wouldn't be speaking to you today. So because you know the story yourself, we put the music up on Twitter, and it was picked up by a music review site in the UK, who was picked up by a blogger in Germany. I know she's featured regularly on your show.
Yep, Nessie.
When I listen in quite a bit, sounds like a lovely girl. And if it wasn't for her introduction to you, then we wouldn't be on the show. So it's definitely got its pros. It got its negatives as well. The odd time is it can be pretty demanding, and especially with Twitter, you have to kind of know, not overkill. You know, you don't want to. It's hard work to kind of generate fans for yourself on your social media and stuff like that, but to kind of overkill with material, and I think that's the demise of many a good band, or they lose those likes that they originally had on Facebook. So we try not to throw out too much content, but it does exactly what we needed to do for now.
Well, fair enough. You know, and you got some really good points, and you're absolutely right with a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, Joey, that's all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks a mil, Brian, for having us on the show, and hopefully we'll have that EP for you pretty soon, so you can give it a spin. But thanks a million for having us.
Absolutely, and we'll have you right back on to talk about the EP as soon as it's out.
That's great, Brian. Thanks a mil, mate.
And not a problem. Joey, you have a good afternoon, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joey.
Take care.
All right, bye. All right, guys, that was Joey from Cash is King. I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I did. It was a lot of fun and just a lot of good info there. So they got an upcoming EP, hopefully the second week of April. So tune in for that when it comes out. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for listening. This is Dr. Bones saying Bones out.